Okay, Simon. Now we talked about the book, and then I'm going to go back to it because you made a very simple sounding statement in it. You made the decision to stop losing.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it sounds easy.
yeah. Well, that was when I took a break for the first time since I was 16, and it's only then if you make a decision to do something and then write. I'm a great believer in writing things down. I think we spoke earlier off about, we often talk about losing runs and record keeping. We don't talk enough about handling winning runs and previews and writing down what it is you actually want. And I'd say that to anybody. If you want to be a leisure punter, if you want to be a serious punter, if you even want to go professional, harder as it is to do that now, then you need to write down almost like a business plan or a project plan about what it is you want to achieve. And I sort of really got betting back to basics and found out that I had too many bets. I bet too many short price horses. I was constantly trying to get information out of people in Malton, most of which didn't then come to fruition. So I started to learn seriously about form reading in a professional way and limit myself to say 15 bets a week. And that meant I missed a lot of winners, but I cut out a hell of a lot of losers. And I can honestly say that if 90% of punters cut their betting down by 75%, they'll see a huge upturn in profit. And also, if you only have 10, 15 bets a week, it's still over two a day. And think of the amount of time you can spend on those races. If you're having 12, 14 bets a day, that's a hell of a lot of money you've got to rush through. So yeah, a painful process. And also, I took that time to work on like myself, work on how I treated other people, how I treated betting, and tell myself some like hard truths. So yeah, I don't think you can ever. I think I'm certainly somebody, and I think a lot of gamblers and a lot of people in this industry are people with authority issues, people with a lot of rebellious streaks, and I'll show you and everything. And that can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing as well in punting. So if you've got a rebellious streak and if you've got authority issues, you're less likely to have that look in the mirror conversation because you spend your life blaming everybody else. So that was a real big change around. And then I came back into the game sort of tentatively. And then since then, it's not a fairy tale. I've had like bad spells and losing runs like everybody, but I'm content that I know what I'm doing is the right methods. And that'll mean losing runs, but it'll also mean in the end that, you know, I know I'm going to come out on top. So there's no point ever betting in anger. And that's what I suppose leads on to say that the idea of the 2.5% stake. The reason I used that was because it was a very defensive approach for somebody who was a losing gambler to try and slow down. Now, I know a lot of people say it's not aggressive enough, and that's fine. If you're somebody who can handle betting 4, 5, even 6% of your bank in each bet, that's great. But what the 2.5% will do is it'll carry you through losing runs, and it will keep you from betting in anger and emotion. And if you bet in anger and emotion, I think it's very unlikely you're ever going to win long term.
Okay, so when I was interested in this, you mentioned the 2.5% staking plan, which is 2.5% of whatever tank it is you've got.
Yeah.
And it's always 2.5% of whatever
Yeah.
tank you've got. So if you've had a losing run, your 2.5% stake will go down with
Yeah.
the size of the tank. Now, why do you go? You said it's defensive, but why would
Yeah.
you not think a suitably sized bank and go 2.5% of that would be a better option?
I think your mind view of it updates with every race. So this is a pain in the arse compared to betting a section of the bank. So you've got to have your thing in front of you, your kind of retina. But for me, your whole betting process should be like an ongoing thing. So if you're having 2 to 3 bets a day, which would be a lot now for me, then it's fairly easy to update. If you were having like 10, 15 and you were trading regularly, then you probably would work from a fixed bank. But I like to know exactly why. And it changes minimally. So like I was saying, if you have 75 quid on a horse and it loses, within a standard bank like that, your bet drops to £73.50. What you can't do, if you stick to this, you can't crash and burn by charging. And you also can't chicken out. by thinking I'm on a rotten run, I'm going to drop to a fiver. Because if you do that, of course, we know the game, you hit your 50 to 1 winner. So for me, this works. And I say in the book, if it works for you and you see gradual improvement, your bets are always going up when you're succeeding. So it seems like it's a ultra defensive mode. But my argument back to that would be, if you have an incredible year, that 2.5% is much bigger than it was the previous year. So you're always protected from losing runs if you're on the right track with your betting, if you're looking for big priced horses that are bigger than they should be, if you're not backing odds on shots, if you stay away from yards out of form, all those like golden rules like stuff, then you will be all right, you'll prosper. And again, it's what you want out of your betting career. If you want at the end of a year to say, I've made a couple of grand, this is what I'm going to do with it, then this will just keep you steady away. If you want to bet professionally, then you might have to tweak all sorts of things in your life, and maybe staking will be one of them.
Okay, so but is it, I mean, you're a professional tipster predominantly now, so is it also peace of mind for you if you advise your punters to use this plan, that they're never actually going to be out of the game, which is another thing that you can't be out of the game? No,
you can't be out of the game. If I want you to be a customer, it's bad for me and you if you're out of the game. And I'll give you an example, festival betting side. This is where I do a lot of festival specials, and I implore people, and I know people don't listen, and it's from my own example. The last thing you want with a Cheltenham when you've taken the week off work is to be out of the game on Wednesday morning. So in the old days, the best bit of advice when I started going to Cheltenham was the old 3-draw approach in the hotel. If you were taking 500 quid, split it into 3 envelopes, was 3-day festival then, showing my age, and place the amount the same in each draw in the hotel. Then you knew you could only take one on each day. Now the world's moved on, but there are ways of offering different banks for different days. So if we think of festivals as sort of a microcosm, if you think of your wider betting in the same way, you could have 365 hotel room draws, but what you could do is just think that if you can't be out of the game, you can survive any losing run if you've got a defensive enough staking plan. And, there's a losing run with everyone's name on it out there. And if statistically, if you bet even money shots, you'll have 2 losing runs of 10 each year. So don't think you're protected if you're playing the shorties, because there's one out there with your name on it.
Of course, then you have 3 times as much on the 11th.
Exactly.
Right, so we've talked about your book. You got another book coming out.
I have, yeah. I'm working on a book now about the history of tipping, tipsters, the future, the good bits, the bad bits, going back to Chief Monolulu shouting, I've got a horse on an orange box outside Sandown.
So this is entertainment as opposed to being...
Yeah, this is not a guide, and I'm going to interview certain tipsters in there, ones that I've followed, ones that I've admired, some American guys as well. So I have set myself a target to finish that by, he said, the Ebor week. So I'm hoping that'll be out in September this year.
Okay, so what?
Or September one year.
I mean, why did you decide to do that, and how many sort of tipsters have you?
From first getting involved in betting, and this is really important, that I fell in love with betting. The love of racing followed on from that. But I've always been obsessed by tipsters, and I'm lucky in that I do what I've always wanted to do, and it's a very small amount of the population that get up and they're doing the job that they always wanted to do. So I wanted to sort of profile the ones I like, the good things about the industry, mention the things that are not so good. And tipping's changed from letters to phone lines to now doing the kind of direct involvement on YouTube or people through other social media sites. So it's changed, and I want to look at where it might be in 5-10 years' time. I have a bleak view of racing, I'm afraid. I hope I'm wrong. And I have a fairly downbeat view of tipping. So I think their two futures are obviously allied, but I think there is a future for both.
It's interesting because I was involved with tipping when you see all the adverts in the Sporting Life and you think the golden goose is there.
Yeah.
But since doing these interviews, I've met people obviously were actually genuine, very successful tipsters.
Yeah.
So they are out there, present company of course, they are out there.
Yeah.
So the other thing you've got going on is you're actually getting involved with owning horses.
Yeah, and again, I've got a friend in Scarborough, a 40-year friendship. We talked about doing something. I've always wanted to get involved in syndication. I thought, what better way to ruin a 40-year friendship than us starting a racing business? So that's what we've done. I want the idea of, and I'm not, there are some fantastic syndicates out there, and I'm friends with quite a few people who run them, but I wanted to get like the real fun back into racing. So it's called Going Racing, Making Friends, Having Fun. That's the tagline of the company, shsyndicates.com. We've got one horse in training now with Gay Kellaway called No More. I'm looking to have ones in Lambourn, Moulton, and get back to that idea of a real day out, which racing, for all its millions and millions of problems, is still the best sport in the world, and it's the best day out, the best day, and it's the only day out where you have the slight possibility of coming home with more money than you arrive with. There's no other day out can offer that. So I really want that. And I also want people, like I said in Blurb, who can look at an owners and trainers bar with bad intentions. So we want that, people who, if you sit at home and you don't want to go racing, this is not the syndicate thing for you. So we want to be out there.
And is this something that you hope will be like a new, ongoing, growing thing, or do you want to keep it nice and small? And
No, we want to like make it as big as we can, yeah. And that's what I want to do really now. I've found my sort of niche, as I say. I've got the people on YouTube that like me and I like them. If it's not for people, then that's fine. I want to do obviously got this book in the pipeline, do another couple after that, and really push this syndicate like business and get out there, yeah. So onwards and upwards.
Okay, so finally, one bit of advice that punters should take from this interview with you. What would it be?
See the bigger picture. Take the emotion out of your bets. Shout them home. Shout them home. You've got to shout them home. Best bit of advice was Eddie the Shoe Fremantle, where he said, if you shout a horse home that you've backed, you get rid of like loads of emotion. So that's what I do. You kind of like shout and scream. The neighbours love me, and then it's gone. Whereas if you're a brooder and you sit and look at the wall and you've had a bad day, I think that's where it can get issues. So yeah, shout them home, win or lose. And remember that the point of it, if you're in it to win money, is to then do something with it. So buy a TV, name it after the horse that won. So if you've got the Frankel TV, so I've got someone that won at Catterick Computer. But then you hook it, and of course, like my old mate Adelfish used to say, if you have a big win, turn it into collateral, buy a car or a house, and then you can't give it back.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, Simon Hogan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Si.